Hi, my name is Steve Dante, and I'm a Gold Wellness Consultant in Rockford, Illinois. And very often we're introduced to Nikken through the process of a wellness preview. And that was the case for me. Back about 6 years ago, a client walked in my office in February, and he was one of my preferred clients. He was fairly wealthy. And he came in and he put his taxes in a section of my desk, and he said, "I'd like you to sit down with me when we're done, and I'd like you to take a look at a business I'm looking at, and I think it's something that maybe we could do together." Now, Bob was a very, let's say he was a wealthy businessman. He had built several regional fastener businesses in the Midwest, and imagine a very wealthy client, a millionaire several times over, walking in your office and saying, "I'd like you to take a look at business with me." Well, needless to say, I was pretty excited. So it was like a Monday afternoon, and we finished up our tax work, and Bob left, and I went home that night, and for some reason I couldn't sleep. You think I was excited? I spent the next 3 days sort of on pins and needles waiting for this meeting. It was on Thursday night, and I went to Bob's house on a Thursday night, and knocked on the door, and Bob came in and said, "Come on in, I've got a few business partners here." And I walked in, and I saw about 6 people with these little round metal balls rolling each other's shoulders. I was a little bit curious, but frankly, I figured, I think I just got invited to one of those things. You know what I'm talking about? I was polite, and since Bob was a client of mine, I sat in the back of the room and I listened to this presentation for about 60 minutes. And the first section was about these products that I had really never heard about from a company in Japan, and it was interesting. The second section was a small section about this business and this industry called network marketing, and I was frankly a little bit less than thrilled. But Bob, once again, is a very good client of mine, so I sat through, and right towards the end, 4 people got up, and they started talking about these product experiences they had. And one talked about their son, one talked about their mom, and they talked about people they cared about and people they loved, and they were using these technologies from this company, and they had these remarkable results. And you know, if I had been asked the day after this meeting what I learned about the business, and frankly, I probably couldn't tell you. And if you'd asked me about these technologies from this company, I wasn't too familiar with those either. But to this day, and this is almost 6 years ago, I can tell you almost exactly what those stories were. And I realized at that point that the power in this company is really the way these products work with people. And that was 6 years ago. And when I took a look at this, I looked at it because of the products. And it wasn't until we started investigating the company, and you know, as a CPA, I looked at the D&B. I mean, I was pretty impressed. It had this 5A1 rating, and I knew what that meant. So that was about 5 years ago, and we've been just excited as heck ever since. And it's a great company, and we're just having a whole bunch of fun.
Steve, what was the most exciting story out of those that you heard?
Absolutely, yeah. I won't give you the last names, but Dave and Michelle. Dave and Michelle had a daughter who was about 6 or 7 months old at the time, and she had this terrible breathing problem. You know, when you've got a terrible cold, you can hear yourself breathe. And their daughter was using this thing called a nebulizer in her bedroom because she had a terrible breathing problem. And they would have, you know, when you have kids, you have these child monitors. They would go in the living room when their daughter was asleep, and they'd put a monitor in her bedroom and a monitor next to them, so they could always hear her breathe, and that was her comfort zone. At least we know she's struggling, but she's breathing. And the gentleman who invited me to take a look at this, he lent them a pet pad. Imagine this. Imagine walking to a friend and say, "Oh, why don't you put your daughter on a pet pad?" But they trust him, and they brought this pet pad home. They put it in her crib. And that night, they laid her down like they always did, and they went back to the living room, and they were probably sitting down and relaxing and maybe watching some TV, and Michelle noticed that, how come our daughter isn't, I don't hear any noise. And they were startled, and they ran back into the room, and they actually shook their daughter. They were obviously afraid that they had lost her. And when I first saw Dave and Michelle tell this story, they were extremely emotional. It was like they were reliving it. It was a dramatic event. And in the first night they used the ped pad, her breathing had cleared up, and she, the symptoms that they were so used to were no longer there. So that just struck me, and that was a powerful example of the things that we see.
Okay, just one more story. Your favorite story since you've been in 5 years. That's got to be a few.
There is. Let's see. My favorite story, absolutely. A buddy of mine, one of my running buddies in Nikken. His name is Dave also, and we were at a coffee shop one day, and we noticed a lady who was walking and dragging her right leg. And Dave had seen her in the coffee shop before, so he walked up to her, and he said, I noticed you're dragging your leg. You hurt yourself or something? And she was a nurse, by the way. And she said, well, actually, I've got this thing called MS. And they started talking a little bit, and Dave said, would you mind sitting down and just chatting with us? Because we'd love to hear about what you're going through. Maybe there's something we know that will help. We didn't know at that point she was a nurse. But she did. And she sat down with us, and we started talking, and we kind of heard about the difficulty she was having with this MS condition. And we suggested she come to a wellness preview. We might try some of these technologies. They're natural, and they certainly can't hurt you, but take a look at them. And she did. And when we got to the house, we stood her on a pair of mag steps. And this is our first experience actually with someone who had a very serious condition like this. And in about 60 seconds, she started to sweat profusely. And she said, I need to get off these things. And we immediately were a little bit alarmed. So we called our upline. And we said, here's what we're doing. We're dealing with, her name is Liz, and she's got some terrible conditions going on. And they suggested, why don't you just give her a pie water system to use for a few days and see if some of these things will help. So we gave her a Pimax system. She took it home, and 4 days later she called Dave. She said, I really need to talk to you. So, okay. So she came over, and Dave invited me over. And Liz said, I didn't tell you guys this, but as a condition of my MS, I've been undergoing chemo treatments. Apparently she had stage 2 progressive MS. And she said every 9 weeks she would go through a treatment. And immediately after the treatment, she'd get these things called chemo blisters that would be up and down her throat. It would be very, very difficult to eat, swallow, or consume anything. And apparently she had one the week before this. So she was in a lot of pain. And she took the Pimax system home, and she started using it for 4 days. And the reason she called us was because her blisters had gone away. I mean, it was incredible. So we were just sort of stunned and didn't know what to expect. And we said, well, why don't you keep using it, and we'll touch base every 2 or 3 days, and maybe then we can progress to the next step. And it turned out over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we learned she had some serious bowel restrictions, and her fingernails were growing, maybe because of also some of the things that she was going, and all those things subsided. So within about 4 weeks, her hair was growing, her nails were growing, her bowel was normalized, and all these blisters that she had were gone. And it's the reason we do this business, to see stories like that. It's remarkable.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Of course, we need to stress that Nikken products in this country are, we can't make or imply any medical claims or treatments. But the thing I love about these products, they are natural, and if there's everything to gain and nothing to lose, why not? It won't hurt you. Maybe it won't help, but it definitely won't hurt.
Absolutely. It's so much fun when you deal, I think, with a medical professional. Liz was in the oncology department of our hospital, one of the hospitals in town, and to see her look and to see the change in her as an individual from things that she had never obviously been taught in school or brought up with was just it was a miracle. It was remarkable stuff. So that's just a couple of the stories. I mean, we see story after story in this business, and that seems to be the driving force to realize that we have a mission here, and we have to talk to people and get these things around, and we need to tell our story.
Why have a job when you can be on a mission?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave.